Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. I really enjoy Red Hood and the Outlaws. Every issue kicks ass. I didn't have much care for what Red Hood was up to, but dang, I am so happy I'm getting these. I got the alternate covers on these because that's just what my comic book store had. And I'm not going to review the comics. I might save a review of the comics for later when I get more digital comics and formulate my thoughts, but I'm looking at the covers and I 100% dig this cover. I can see the influence of George Bridgman's Guide to Human Anatomy book on this. So let's find the cover artist for this one. Do they show it? Okay, Gilliam March. Gilliam March. This is so boss. Okay, so first, good dynamic angle, details in the coat, but the shape of the coat is still very prominent. A giant shape up top, the main character filling most of the action and looking dynamic. Big barrel chest, heroic, definition of the abs and muscles, a action pose. So I 100% dug that. And I think I said on Twitter that I'm just not gelling with something like this. So I have looked at it a little bit, but I thought it would be fun to try a little bit of measuring with you guys. Now, a marker actually isn't the best for this. I would use a pencil, or even better, if you can get a little wooden stick that you skewer marshmallows on, those are perfect for measuring. And what you do is if you have a easel, preferably, you would hold your arm out straight so that you don't accidentally bend your arm and lose your measurements. But you hold your arm out straight and then use the tip of your fingernail to make your measurements on the side of your stick or pencil. And then then you have a consistent thing, your own human body and your own implement to measure out everything while you're making a live drawing. So this isn't like exactly realistic that as I'm drawing on this, but it gives you kind of an idea of what I like to do when I'm just doing life drawing. And I thought we'd try to measure this out. Okay, so one head, two head. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do the thing again where I stop looking at you guys and actually look at the paper I'm drawing. Okay, so there's the second head. That's about right. So I've read George Bridgman's Guide to Human Anatomy. I've read Albrecht Dührer's Dresden sketchbook, few others that were my reading materials, and then live drawing in class. But then we did so much live drawing that you eventually just learned a few tricks to try to do some of the quick things. So not measuring every little idea, but trying to get some of the basic ideas down. So the average human is about 7 heads high, and Marvel Comics used to recommend giving heroes 8 heads proportions. But then you'll also draw people who are 4 heads high, so there's variety within that. But the 7 heads high measurement is a really good starting point, and then you can adjust up or down from that. It's good to kind of float in the middle with most of your drawing, and then push taller or fatter or skinnier from the average, so you don't accidentally make someone too tall or too fat. All right, so the second thing I noticed is, well, this is actually a coloring thing, not a proportions thing, but her face is rendered, but other things are a bit more comic booky coloring. But as I thought about it, what I realized is the thing I'm probably not liking is her head to shoulder ratio. So let's try to measure that out. There is the width of her head, and then so she's got her head at a tilt, but okay. So the ideal proportions usually is about a half a head to either side, especially for a woman who would have a bit more of a would have more narrow shoulders, as opposed to a man who would have broader shoulders, in kind of like the idealized proportions. So really, I would like the shoulders to be coming into this line here, and then we measure out this way. Now her shoulder's angled up, so that one's actually not as bad. All right, so this is the weak shoulder here. Her right shoulder, our left. Something seems off about the neck. It's stretched, and she's tilting her head. I almost feel like they drew the head separately and then arced it over. So I feel like, so if it's a head problem, okay, so there's the shoulder. So one of the big problems of drawing is getting so focused on a few details like the eyelashes that you lose the structure. And your structure is a really quick gesture drawing that you could draw in 30 seconds. The Renaissance man, one of my art teachers, he would give us 10-second or 5-second drawings where he would expect us to show the shape and proportions of a human form in about 5 seconds. And we used Vine charcoal to sketch it out, so it would end up just looking like a big shadow, but you would have the idea of the body down that quickly. So I've got to go get some Vine charcoal so I can do those kinds of shade drawings again. But with a marker, I do a little bit more kind of stick figure and then go from stick figure to a more refined drawing. Okay, female, so let's get her rib cage. Let's try to identify where her rib cage is. It's supposed to be here, so that doesn't seem to be the worst part of it. I think Bridgman also might have had a chapter on kind of rectangular drawings where you reduce everything to cubes and boxes. I've done some drawing like that, but I kind of prefer a stick figure and then basic forms and then cylinders and shapes, and then once you've got that basic stuff down, then you do the shadows and the beautiful stuff. So from simple to complex. She's got really nice hips. I don't have any problem with that. And I learned this from Christopher Hart's book. Not a lot of Christopher Hart's books really suck, but he actually had an okay one on cartooning and drawing a body with contrapposto. I just always look up Michelangelo's David if I want to refresh my memory on contrapposto. So we should be having this shoulder coming down, the hip is going up. So let me try to remember here. I know how to draw it, but I don't remember how to say it. If your shoulder is going down, that means you're resting your foot, the weight of your foot on that. I think I remember that right. Actually, most of her feet are off the panel, so we're not going to worry about that too much. Okay, kind of a boxy hips here. Oh, I'm so rough. I gotta get some life. I don't know. It's hard to do it if you don't have access to a life drawing class. So what I might do is I might just do quick sketches again with photographic references, but time myself so I don't end up spending too much time looking at a photograph to kind of train my ability to quickly identify things. Elbow. Oh, I forgot my forearm proportions. I think is it 1.5 heads? So let's see here. One. I think the artist did okay here. Yeah, 1.5. It looks good to my eye. Sometimes I just go with my eye on that. So what you can see here is I have essentially moved her arm in. That's one fix I would make. And I'd give her a daintier kind of Bruce Timm style wrist. We're going to have to move it over, obviously. And I hate hands. Everyone hates hands. They're complicated shapes, but you just have to reduce it to a few triangles. And in this gesture, I'm just going to try to capture the idea of the hand. And then if I were sketching in pencil, I'd be able to kind of, it's How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way all over again. You draw up lots of lines, you find the lines that you really like, and those become what you use. So I've kind of given her gargantuan hands, which is a thing I've noticed I have the tendency to do a lot. So I'm just going to try to identify knuckles. I'm just going to try to identify the basic idea. And since I'm working with marker on this, there's no way to go back. So I'm just going to sketch out the skeleton is all today, because I can't go back. I need an opaque marker to go back and make this an actual beautiful drawing. All this is just an example of me thinking about structure. The other way to fix her shoulders might be to actually widen her head a little bit too, but only slightly. There can be a tendency to overcorrect when you're drawing. So I try to do very slight adjustments to try to get the right feel. The early stages are about getting the broad idea right, the shape of the body. If you have stretched the body in the early stages, you can't fix it in post. And then once you get to the post details, then it's very slight things. So she's Harley Quinn and she's nuts, so I would actually keep this kind of zany expression as long as you understood that it is a zany expression. I would just probably remove this unnatural shading from it. Let's see. Let's figure out what her hand is doing. You could cheat a bit, like here, since it's behind a bunch of things. So it looks like her arm is, based on the angle, should be coming around this way. It should be similar, maybe very slightly foreshortened. And then, wow, that would be one heck of a foreshortened arm if she's holding it that way. So, but this is actually a pretty clever cheat if you don't want to figure all that out with the second arm. But this is okay. I mean, it's close to maybe being a little awkward in the foreshortening, but I can tell that the artist probably drew that out so that you wouldn't have this awkward thing of a hand floating in space that doesn't feel like it could connect to anything. So that one feels okay. Her chest. Yeah, got to emphasize the boobs, of course. I think the her breasts are at just about the right place. Yeah, this is a pretty good art. Pretty good art. The clavicle is actually connecting to the top of the shoulder. They're not just a couple lines in the middle of the chest. The point of this line is that's the bone connecting here, and that is kind of where the meat of your shoulder muscle hangs on. So, yeah, not bad. Really, only one thing that was annoying me was the wideness of her shoulders. Uh, Background's a little dull, but whatever. So that's all. The only point of this was just to show you a little bit of structure drawing that does not look good, because I'm not trying to make a finished drawing on top of this comic book. I'm just trying to show how I structure things when building a human body. Number one Marmaduke fan, tell me what you think of this kind of thing, because I've got more comic book covers that I could roast or critique, and it helps me to think, I think, when I have something in my hand I can draw with. And we're going to have some very special, when I get home from Christmas, we're going to have some very special art vids for some particularly roast-worthy comics that are going to get roasted the number one Marmaduke fan way. I can't wait to share that with you guys. Number one Marmaduke fan, love you guys. Catch you later.